Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of The Probe, or rather should I say, Mihanyo Manye Kunyo Manye Ablao. The Probe tonight, we explore the clash between modern societal norms, traditional customs and the legal boundaries in a world where tradition and modernity often clash, where customs and legal frameworks sometimes find themselves at odds. Well, The Probe tonight, it will navigate the intricate tapestry of human experience, from gender roles to religious practices, from family dynamics to individual freedoms. We'll explore the tensions that come when ancient customs meet customary legal standards. You join us tonight as we examine these nuances, the challenges, the assumptions, and seek to understand the forces shaping our collective identity. And of course, this week has been a busy one, or should I say the past one. There have been issues about the minor and the marriage at Nungwa. Well, let's take a look at the Constitution, our cultural rights and practices, by starting from Article 26, the 1992 Constitution. Every person is entitled to enjoy, practice, profess, maintain, and promote any cultural, language, tradition, or religion subject to the provisions of the 1992 Constitution. So all customary practices which dehumanize or are injurious to the physical and mental well-being of a person are prohibited. That's our Constitution to start with. Well, this whole debate about the age of this particular minor has come into question, raising the issue about consenting age. Amongst others, it was first 12, then 15, is it 16? Where exactly are we? We are told that she will be turning 16 in July, amongst others. Stay with me. We'll get to explore this particular issue shortly. But also, we talk about the Criminal Code 1960 Act 29, Section 14A. Only persons 16 years and above can give sexual consent. That's the details. And then Section 101, 1 and 2, whoever knows a child, by knowing a child, carnal knowledge, a child under 16 with or without consent commits a criminal offense, and imprisonment is between 7 and 25 years. Are we at that point yet? Well, hold on to that. We'll take a look at it. But the child marriage, the age debate, and the law, we've been exploring that. So let's go on to the next slide. If she is 12 or 15, cannot give sexual consent. That's explicit. The issue about if she's 16, can give sexual consent. But the issue about marriage does not come up just yet if she's 16. Now we go on. That's the age and the debate and the law. And narrowing down onto this particular issue that we've been talking about for a while, we've heard from the office of the Bobu Wulomo Shiche. She's the overlord of the Gadangbe State, Nungwa traditional area. The statement, amongst others, seeks to clarify that there is no carnal relationship or marriage involved as perceived by many. For the records, the other wives of the deity have their respective legal husbands. That's the explanation that has been given. Subsequently, there have been a press conference, amongst others. All these issues we get to explore. But I've seen a number of statements, particularly on this particular subject. Now, we've seen the Bobu Wulomo statement. Let's go on to the other statements. We'll just look at them. The Gadangbe Council also says it is important to clarify that the traditional ruler has stated that the relationship with the underage girl is a betrothal and not a marriage. This distinction to us has altered the legal implications. So now, it is in red for you for a reason. The betrothal and not a marriage. I would want you to keep this in mind. This is something that has become a subject of controversy now, whether the law is explicit on what betrothal is, whether they prescribe punishment for betrothal amongst others, whether betrothal is actually a promise to marriage amongst others. Underline that, we'll get into it. Let's look at the other statements now. So the Children's Act, we know that no person shall force a child to be betrothed, to be the subject of a dowry transaction, or to be married. The minimum age of marriage or whatever kind shall be 18 years. You see that? So that's what is now generating all the controversy that we've been talking about. And tonight, we'll try to settle that particular debate on this matter. And going on, looking at some of the other issues that have come up, a person who contravenes a provision of sections 2 to 14 commits an offense and is liable to, on summary conviction, to a fine not exceeding 250 penalty unit or to a term of imprisonment. So this is the law, and these are the issues that will come up whilst we are discussing the issue about betrothal or marriage and what the law says about it. Let's go on, and then if it's a marriage, it's an offense because she is below 18 18 years, and betrothal depends on whether forced or assented to. And that's where the whole controversy is coming in, betrothal or marriage. What exactly happened in the Nungwa situation? My guest will help me get a better understanding of it. But already we know that the AG, the Deputy Attorney General, was on news file yesterday, and amongst others, he says we would appreciate if the IGP, in that letter to the IGP, could cause your outfit to conduct the necessary investigation of the alleged child marriage to enable our office to do the needful. What exactly will happen? What are the timelines? We'll get to look at it. And then moving on, we've seen the NCCE statement talks about the Nungwa Traditional Council to review its traditional practices to bring them in line with the laws of 1992 Constitution of Ghana. These are concerns that have been raised. The NCCE, we've seen the Network for Women's Rights in Ghana, NetRight, they've also issued a statement to that effect. We'll go on to some other statements that have come in. We've seen FIDA Ghana also calling for a close look into the endorsement of child marriage in the Nungwa Ulomo customer marriage as part of their necessary rights and procedures. Now, these are more of the statements that have come in. Plan Ghana, Plan International, and World Vision also issued a joint statement on this issue. And then we've also seen the GPA, the Ghana Psychology Association, they also issued a statement. A number of statements, I'm sure this week also, maybe we'll get to see more. But we've seen, this brief report from Shraj on child marriages. We're zooming in on that. The total complaints that Shraj has received over the period, 10,525 total complaints Shraj has received. And guess what? Out of these complaints, 10,525 complaints received by Shraj, children's rights complaints make up 33.3%. 3,509 complaints relating to children. And this is a Shraj brief. We also have a statement also from the Ghana Statistical Service. We'll go on. This is the Ghana Statistical Service brief as well. 2010, they had 206,633 marital unions, children 12 to 17 years in marital union. 2021, we had 130,814. This is from the Ghana Statistical Service, that brief that we are getting from them. There's more from that particular brief. And 12 years, this is the makeup, 18,802. 13 years, 17,373. 14 years, you see the figures rising. And 17 years, 31,044. This is the brief from the Ghana Statistical Service on this particular situation when it comes to child marriages. We are live on the Joy News channel. We are on Joy 99.7 FM. We are on myjoyonline.com, DSTV channel 421. GoTV is 125, and social media platforms. So just buckle up and call a friend. I'm sure this is the time to share our link and prepare to journey with us into the heart of this particular matter. I am Emefa Apau, and this is The Probe, where we seek not just answers, but understanding. Please do stay with me. My guest tonight for the show, already seated, is Stephen Asamoah Boateng, Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. He's joined me in the studios. Welcome, Mr. Asamoah Boateng. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We're ready for us to take off shortly. My guest also joining us on Zoom tonight is Bernard Ahiafo, is Ranking Member, Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee. I also have Martin Pebu, is a human rights lawyer. Ni Ama Adi Esquire is Chairman, Human Resource and Development Committee, Gadangbe Council, GDC. And then also I have Josiah Bernard Nate, is a National Child Safeguarding Advisor at the SOS Children's Villages in Ghana. Welcome, gentlemen, to The Probe. This is the point I ask you to unmute, so we are sure that we are all set to take off.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We'll take a quick turnaround or a quick break here on The Probe. Then we get talking. Please do stay with me. Welcome back. This is The Probe here on the Joy News channel. And of course, the Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Stephen Asamoah Boateng, is my guest in the studios. I've also told you that I have Bernard Ahiafo, is a Ranking Member, Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. Also, Martin Pebu is a human rights lawyer. Ni Ama Adi Esquire is a Chairman, Human Resource and Development Committee, Gadangbe Council, that's the GDC. And Josiah Bernard Nate, National Child Safeguarding Advisor at the SOS Children's Villages in Ghana, my guest tonight. I'm sure when we put out the flyers, many of you were mentioning that it's pretty much a packed show. I must say and thank the Minister for the last minute, acceptance to be part of the show. So for that matter, we will be extending the show for tonight so we can have enough time to actually dissect all the issues that have come up. Mr. Minister, we'll start with you for obvious reasons, because you've caused some form of investigation into this particular matter that has become very topical. So at this point, we would want you to walk us through the preliminary findings, investigation so far. Where exactly are we with this particular matter? Thank you very much, MFR. You obviously know I wouldn't have been at the studio because this has been a hectic time from last weekend during the Easter break. You know, part of my job is also the religious affairs. So Easter conventions here and then, Easter Sunday program, then this also came up. But we try to manage the information that were coming from all sources. As you rightly said, even the basic information about the age was even confusing everybody. But we got to the bottom of it, and we realized that I think she was born on the 18th of July, 2008. That makes about 15 to 16. But at 15 or 16, she's still a child. So what we did was get my colleague ministers together, Interior, Women, Gender and Social Protection, Attorney General, and then the Greater Accra Regional Minister Designate, and myself, to find out who has heard what and how do we find the fine line. Basically, what happened over the weekend, from what we have got to know, was not a marriage as we know it. It's a traditional rite, and of course, during the event, a lot of things were said, and the information came out as if they were marrying her to the Bobo Wulomo. Indeed, I then quickly had to move in and speak to the traditional authorities. I got Nungwa in my office and some chiefs. I also moved to go to talk to the Bobo Wulomo myself. And then we began to see clearly that this had nothing to do with the canal relations at all. But having said that, we were concerned about the outcry and obviously the concern by Ghanaians, and that was our worry. Child's welfare was our priority. But whether we've had the right to take the child out of the situation. So we talked to the police who helped us to take her out of the Nungwa environment. She's safe and everything. She's still within the care, not with the police. Was she in any danger of assault? Not at all. No, there was no danger. She was not hiding. From our information, after the event on the 30th, she was actually she went to the care of a mature woman, a queen mother. So there was no relation going to a man's house or anything like that. And so we were okay. So the police just helped us to get her out, just to forestall any problems. And she's being kept well. Social welfare officers are there. The minister has visited her. I myself went there, but I didn't see her. I didn't want to see her. But the ladies were there, and she's eating, she's talking. But we obviously realized that she's been part of the system of the tradition at about age 6. So you can imagine a 6-year-old who has been groomed to perform a function and to sprinkle some traditional concoctions and food to the 99 gods. So she's focused on what she's doing. So when you talk to her, according to the ladies, she's very focused on what she's doing. And so we have to find out what else is she doing. And we realize she goes to school. Okay, what does she do? Was a teacher? What did they teach her? Does she have friends? So we're trying to open up her life a little bit. But we got to also, as your initial comment says, to be careful not to let the tradition be diluted too much when we know what her role is. In traditional sense, some young people are taken up at very tender age and focused. There's going to be a chief. They groom them, and they are kept away from normal people. They're taking them to school by protection and all that. So we're trying to balance between the tradition and the modern world that we live in. And so that's the state. She's still in our care. We try, because we can't keep her out of the environment for too long. Especially when we haven't seen or heard or even found out there's anything criminal about anything. Of course, the police are doing their work, but we talk to them. So far, we're okay. It's just a question of time and how we integrate her back into the community. And also get her to be a normal child a bit. Of course, she will play her role if that's what
she has to do. I mean, we can't force it.
But at this point, she can't be a normal child, knowing that...
I think a lot have gone on there. She wouldn't be a normal child. She has to contend with what she was being trained for and what the brouhaha has come up to and what we move from here to there. So the social welfare department is handling that. In the aspect, we're giving her 2 carers. We got everything she needs. She's eating, she's talking, she's laughing. So I would want to assure everybody that she's okay, she's fine.
Okay.
And me and my colleagues are talking. In fact, we asked the Minister of Information to issue a statement, which she did. And as you read from the statement, our priority is the welfare of the child. And that's what we've secured. The others will run through the checks. The police are doing their bit, I'm doing my bit. And it's talking, getting the feedback. And my key role as the Minister for Chieftaincy is to focus the mind of the traditional authorities across the country. Now look, there are certain traditions that with modern society and the Constitution are fading out. And we got to sit down and ask the Chieftaincy Act 759, I think clause 11.2 says we must find a way to codify these customary laws. Because they form part of our normal laws or our traditional laws. It's common law, but the customary is part of it. So we need to codify area by area. And then it goes through the traditional area and then comes through the regional House of Chiefs. And then if it needs to be, it goes back forth before it goes to the national. Once it's accepted, it's codified, published, and we all know this is the tradition of this area. We don't have it now. So when we hear something, everybody who is not too sure about it just jumps up, and I can understand. But
you're speaking as though there's nothing to look into when it comes to this particular matter, because it appears that as minister, you're already satisfied with the age change. We're told that it was 12, now 15, turning 16, and it appears it's satisfactory to you from where you sit.
Yeah, I mean, the age is not questionable. We've checked with details, we've checked the school data. I think we haven't had our hands on the birth certificate.
So how then do you conclude?
Well, the school records are there. I mean, that's part of it. I don't know how they got about that. Before this event, she had...
But what kind of investigation will you do such that you don't have the birth certificate, but you agree that you
need? They need to go through a process, but we can reach them. We tried to reach them on Friday, we couldn't. So tomorrow, I think we can get there. But we are almost fairly sure that she's not 12. But as I said, I don't want to dwell too much on the age. The differences keep on telling us that there's some few information we need to get right. And that's why we don't want to give up too much. We don't want to give out too much until we are sure. And when we are sure, hopefully by this week, we should be able to get a situation where we integrate her back, and also we begin to move on training and understanding the customs and how we can all live in peace under a constitution.
Well, these are issues that we'll be going into, but what are the timelines given to the police when it comes to this investigation?
We haven't given any timeline to the police. They work with us and we talk quite a lot. They know this is an issue that must be resolved very quickly. And I believe by this week we should get through the basic things. If there's nothing that's happened and we can be sure of where she can be integrated to, we're talking to the parents as well. I mean, a child must have
both parents agree that
parents agree. We've had the parents. We've had them in. We've spoken to them. And my information, I haven't seen the parents myself, but my information is that they are prepared to embrace the new direction we give. But don't forget, the mother of the child apparently is also a priestess.
Okay.
So she's part of the traditional, the clan that performs that. So we've got to be very careful as to trying to take them out of their normal traditional duties. I recognize, I'm an indigent, and we keep on repeating to them that I understand what they're doing, but so long as there's no criminality, if there is, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't shield anybody. But so far, I am fairly okay with what I've heard.
Is it true that she's pregnant?
No.
She's not?
No.
There's not been any canal?
I picked up the signal even on the Sunday or Monday, and I put it directly to those I was talking to, the traditional. They said no, and I'm okay. And I think the social welfare officers have also done a little bit. I don't want to give too much. There have been a lot of tests. But we are fairly sure that she's not pregnant.
Okay. Well, let me bring in our other guest on Zoom on this. Then we can get into the clash between modernity, customs, and then what the law prescribes. Maybe I think it's a good time to go to Bernard Ahiafo on this, for obvious reasons, because he's a ranking member on Parliamentary Constitution and Legal Affairs. I'm sure that this particular matter is on your table as we speak, but really issues about whether betrothal is prescribed by law, whether it's illegal, amongst others, comes up. But I would want to pick your initial thought on this particular issue and what you've heard so far.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and let me use your time to say a very good evening to your cherished viewers and the listeners, not forgetting the people of Akati South constituency. In fact, I'm happy to hear that the child is safe in the circumstances, because in matters of this nature, and in accordance with the Children's Act, matters relating to children, it is the interest of the child that is paramount. So I'm happy to hear that the child is in a very safe environment. While you are asking whether a betrothal is backed by law, in fact, we have to look at this taking into consideration our laws in totality. Now, you've done a very good analysis as to when a person can marry, whether betrothal or marriage. There is a thin line. In marriage, there must be a consent between the parties. And even a betrothal, there must equally be a consent between the parties. So having regard to the age of the child involved, can that child give a consent? And if the child is not of a consenting age, then it means that the legal requirements that will be needed in either marriage or betrothal is not there regarding the age. Therefore, it will border on an issue of illegality. Because marriage is a union between a man and a woman. And some people add to the exclusion of all others. And a betrothal is an engagement or a contract to get married. It is futuristic in nature. But there must be a consent between the parties involved in the betrothal. And in this case, the child involved is 15 to 16 years. And a person below the age of 18 years can definitely not be at a consenting age. So whether it is betrothal or it is a marriage, there is a legal problem there which we must look at. Because without consent, then it means that we cannot even have a valid betrothal or valid marriage.
Okay, so I was going to go to the Section 4 of the Children's Act, where it's actually becoming the whole, or generating the entire controversy, at least. We've seen Ayikwe to issue a statement to that effect. But Section 14, maybe I'll come to Martin Pebu on this. A person shall not force a child to be betrothed. The emphasis is on the word shall force. And does that make the practice of betrothal in itself an offense? That's where the controversy is being generated. Where do you stand on this particular issue, Martin?
In this particular case, the information...
I'll come to Martin Pebu on this. Let me go to Martin Pebu on this. Ms. Ahiafo.
Yeah. Amafa, you see, there is a problem with the law. I mean, let's be very clear. There's a problem. You see, the Section 14 you've read. Yeah. We all agree that betrothal is not the same as marriage. But that 14, when you go to 14.2, you see that it sets a minimum age for marriage at 18. It says marriage of whatever type. So please, those who insist that when it's customary marriage, you can have 16, please, it's wrong. Whether it's customary marriage or ordinance or Islamic marriage, please, 18 for any kind of marriage. But you see that there's no express mention of the minimum age for betrothal in the Section 14. There's no mention. So the thing is that, let's be very clear. And in law, once you haven't set that minimum age in that Section 14, we need to tread cautiously. Look at 14. It says that a person shall not force a child to be what? Betrothed.
Exactly.
You shall not force. So the way the law has been written is problematic. because then it means that there is a certain age that the child can consent to what? Betrothal. But it's not mentioned. It's not. So what we did, some of us earlier in the week, was to run to Section 14 of Act 29. That's the Criminal Offences Act, which talks about age of consent. So age of consent, there is 12 for general matters. That's general age of consent. But when it comes to sex, the law pushes it to 16. So look, in fact, all of these gymnastics we are doing, to be very honest with you, the best way out is that we need to amend the Children's Act to state clearly at what age betrothal can happen. If you want it to be 18, you just say that it should also be at 18. But if you recognize that, well, it can start at 16 or 14, put it. Because we have to be very honest. When you see, we are talking about criminal law. Article 19, clause 11 makes it clear that nothing is a crime unless it is specifically written in law. You see, that's the principle of legality. The principle of legality. So that's how come I joined in the position that the most important thing in this particular case is the fact that the child has been secured and the authorities are working to make sure that everything is okay with the child. But when we come to the crime, it's very slippery. Very slippery. Because you look at the 14 again, it says, shall not force a child to be betrothed. So don't force the child. Indirectly, then you are saying that, oh, it means that if the child agrees willingly. Meanwhile, you've not said at what age the child can agree willingly. So you see why I ran to the Criminal Offences Act, formerly called the Criminal Code, where they put general age of consent at 12. But when it came to sex to have this is 16. So I am thinking that, okay, then because sex is close to marriage, at all costs, the age of betrothal should never be put below 16. The age of betrothal should never be put below 16, because if we say the minimum age for a child to have sex is 16, don't put betrothal below it. But as I've said, and you know, there are 1,001 Supreme Court decisions we can mention. The Supreme Court will tell you that nothing is certain until they have so pronounced. So the best thing is, one of the cases, Edmond Davis, the Republic versus Edmond Davis, a case that Sremsai is doing in the Supreme Court. Yeah, at least that's one of the most recent decisions. You see the Supreme Court saying that the law is what they say it is. So, but if we say we are going to drag this in the law courts, it's going to take too long. So for me, I think the best thing is for us to quickly recast the Section 14. You even hear Professor Kwesi Prempeh, also he's given an interview on it where he says he doesn't like the way the law is. Yeah, the law is badly written. Of course, 1998, so that's over 20 years. So that's a problem.
Thankfully, the lawmaker is with us on this. Ayanfo, you agree that it looks like it's time to take a look at this particular law again?
Yes, law is dynamic. Law is an instrument of social engineering. It must be an aid to development. But what then is betrothal? Betrothal is a formal engagement to be married. It is a mutual promise or a contract for a future marriage. So, having regard to the definition of betrothal, I agree that there is a problem with the law. And law being an instrument of social engineering, we must look at it and profile the necessary amendment. But the situation has confronted us, and Section 14 of the law is the way it is. What do we do now? So my point is that consent for sex is at 16.
Yeah.
But having regard to the definition, two parties are involved in betrothal. Both parties must agree. And at what age would a child have to agree to the betrothal.
But don't forget, we are talking about, a spiritual exercise in this matter. And I'm sure Niadi is itching at this point for us to bring him in on this.
The spiritual element of it makes it so truncated. So truncated in the sense that, having regard to the reason for which Trokoshi system has been abolished in Ghana. Similarly, if a child is going to be betrothed to God, then we must take a second look at it.
Okay, let me bring in Niadi on this, Mr. Ahiafo, because it looks like there's a lot to unpack when it comes to this particular issue. But listening to the minister, Niadi, from the beginning, we were told it was a marriage. Then we heard that it was a betrothal. Then now we are hearing that it's just a traditional rite. What exactly happened? What is going to be her role? Is she going to subsequently, when she turns 18, marry the Bubu Wulomo as a person? Or she just married to the deity and can have her own husband later when she decides to? What exactly is going on here? Is it the case that you're only just shifting and turning when it favors you in your interest amongst others? What exactly is going on?
Good evening and thank you very much. I must thank the Honorable Minister so much for the introduction that he's given, because, having heard the Minister, my heart was at peace, because prior to that, the things that we've been hearing has all been hearsay. And as we all know, the law does not give ear to hearsay. So for the Minister who has said that he's in the thick of things and he has followed where things are up to now, I must say that what he has said so far is heartwarming, and it brings us to some level of peace, particularly for us in the Gadangbe community, where this issue had seemed to, in a way, try to tarnish our status in society, because different people took it in different ways, and a lot of things have been said which shouldn't have happened. I was having a conversation with a friend this afternoon, and I told that friend that when we were young and we went out to do something wrong, our parents or our grandparents may go ahead of us to plead on our behalf, and in order to settle the peace. And a lot of people have said things which does not only affect the Babu deity or the Babu Ulomo, as in the entity of Babu, the person, but also to the whole community. And I think that, the minister has set a very, very good tone, and I hope that it will go a step further for all those who have made those derogatory statements, not only to the leader, the spiritual leader of the people, but also to the entire community, to come up and do what is needful.
Which is what? Which is what? What is the needful?
The needful is that, when you do wrong, when you've insulted the adults, when you've insulted the whole community, and you are hauled before the leaders, then you have to follow the process as to what they will say.
Are you saying that as a people, we should not be concerned when we see, I'm sure you heard the ceremony and the things that went on that day during that particular ceremony, and what the MC was saying amongst others, the child being a tear robber, and what she should do when she has to meet the husband amongst others. I'm sure you heard all these. Are you saying that as a society, we should have sat unconcerned and not raised any alarm for you to explain to us what exactly is going on in the name of tradition?
No, we have said several that the MC misspoke, and that explanation has been given time and again. And therefore, you would expect, and that explanation came under less than 24 hours. But the subsequent comments that have been made has even gone on up to this very day that we speak today. Some of those derogatory statements, comments, have even gone on up to today. That's why I'm so glad for the minister's open remark, and I have to thank you. You made the minister start in order to set the tone for this discussion. But coming to the legalities, if you look at Article 11 and specifically 3, He says that.
But Nyama, maybe just before you go into the legalities, because most of you are lawyers on the panel, so of course we'll get into a lot of legalese when it comes to this particular issue. But help us understand, at least we're talking tradition, modernity, and then the law. So really, what I've come to understand is that this is a 300-year-old deity, has been without a wife for some time now, and then now taking this 15, turning 16-year-old as a wife, so to speak, in inverted commas. Really, 300 years he's been without a wife. Why do you need this 15 to 16-year-old at this point? What happened?
I mean, these are questions that when we meet God, we'll ask him, because, I mean, I cannot sit here to answer.
God agrees to this, you're saying?
I mean, I say there are questions that we'll ask God. I mean, because, I mean, you're talking about things of spirituality. And that was where I was going to quote that article so that we can ground this very question that you've asked in the Constitution. Okay. So if you permit me 1 second, okay, maybe that gives us this thing. So 11.3 says that for the purpose of this article, customary law means the rules of law which by a custom are applicable to particular communities in Ghana. Okay? And I mean, the rules of law, which are customs, but which by custom are applicable to particular communities in Ghana. And if you go back to look at the Ghana concept of God, or the role of the Wulomo in the affairs of the Ghana concept of God, you will know that they occupy a very significant place. I can even tell you that the modernity that we come into has even shifted some of their powers that they hold, to the extent that in the days of yore, you would see that even the Babulomo has a percentage of even fish that is caught at sea. He has that power that he stands at shore, and whatever yields you get, he has a percentage to take from it. That is the extent of power that they wield. I mean, they are the intermediary between God and the people. So that in the concept of God, in the concept of the Gadangbe association to God, the Babulomo plays a very key role. And if if you go to the history and their ways, I mean, even in wars, big greatest wars that the Gadangbe people have won, including the Katamanso War, it was the declaration of a Wulomo that chose the leader for the war, Manche Takikome, the first, at Sakumo Choshishi, the Sakumo Wulomo. Okay, so if all this history is there to guide us, and let me also take you back. I mean, the first Wulomo of the Sakumo Choshishi, who is called Numo Ogbame, he started going to church, tried to become a Christian.
Okay. And
even his name to Paul Mensa, he attained a Christian name. And then after some time with fellowshipping in Christianity, he came back to say that there's no difference between what was done in the church and then what was done at the Wulomos.
Well, that's a subject of controversy, but really, I want to find out some key issues, and I can go on to Josiah on this. I know you want to come in on this matter, but really, let me just find out from you, Niadi, really, there are some key issues that I'm seeing coming up, at least on our timeline on this. So this child, or this minor that we talk about, you say turning 16, you've mentioned that it's just you haven't been able to give me the distinction, whether it's just a traditional right or a betrothal, or really what exactly is, or a traditional right. You haven't really been able to give me that distinction. But in the event that she turns 18, where she can marry, if the 63-year-old Babu Wolomo wants to marry her, is that going to happen? What exactly is the promise? What exactly is going to happen? Just the traditional right, or a betrothal waiting to be married to the Babu Wolomo when she turns 18?
I mean, what I will not do is to speculate, because she hasn't turned 18 and that time has not come. So I cannot say. But let me tell you that the record of betrothal is not new to us. If you read J. Barbot in 1732, a betrothal happened, and specifically page 503. A betrothal happened in Accra between a 40-year-old man and a 7 or 8-year-old child, which was done before a priest. And this child did not become a wife of the man who married her until she attained the age. Okay, so there is a history to betrothal. And we are saying that these spiritual meanings and opinions that we give in that people want to shift away from, but it's grounded as part of our customary law, the belief of the Gandangbe people, which we're saying that they shouldn't. But granted that they want to, we are saying that, yes, even if it is a betrothal, as the argument is, we're saying that it is not a crime.
Okay. Well, let me quickly bring in Mr. Ahiafo, because I know that Josiah has worked extensively when it comes to child marriage in Ghana. We've seen the figures amongst others. But Mr. Ahiafo, you wanted to bring in a quick intervention on what Myanmar has been saying.
When it comes to the applicability of the law, the question that you asked is very germane. Is it a marriage ceremony? Is it a betrothal? Or
just a traditional right?
Traditional, very well. So we need to know so that we can deal decisively with it.
Yeah.
When we know that what happened is a marriage, then we can apply the laws to it in order to determine the veracity or otherwise.
Okay.
If it is a betrothal, then we can look at it in relation to the law. And if it is purely a ceremony to the deity, then we know how to treat it.
Maybe the minister will clarify. Maybe the minister will give us clarification, and then Niama maybe can add, and then we get into the real problem itself, which is the child marriage, and we can now look at the traditions amongst others. You mentioned, at least, I noted that quite clear, that it was a traditional right. But really, traditional rights, but we're hearing that at least she's married to the deity, which is the Bobu Wulomo, the Bobu, and not the Wulomo himself. Yeah. So what exactly is it? Maybe just that clarification.
Let me state clearly that obviously when the matter came up, government was very much aware of the concerns of Ghanaians. And for me as a minister, my number one job is to secure the safety of the child, and for my colleagues and I to sit down quickly, what do we do? What social services do? What social welfare do? We've done that. Yeah. And then we put out a statement, calm down. There are some few details we're trying to get. I'm pretty sure we're almost clear in our mind that this was not marriage. I'm also clear there's a spirituality. I'm from a royal home too. Okay. And betrothal has been with us for ages. But that being said, it doesn't mean there's a carnal interaction or anything like that. It's a waiting period. And even sometimes when they get to that age, they move on. And it's not like a confirmation that you stay in there. They can move on and marry their legal wives. But then the spiritual aspect in which they were originally initiated can continue. In some cases, they need a child. Even some male childs are even initiated to do certain things, not just girls. So let's try and understand, when it's spiritual matters, it's difficult for some of us to understand. It's now clashing with human lives and what people can see with their eyes, not what spiritually those people were intermediary between humans and gods in the past. But as we move on to modern life and democracy and law, we must try and protect our children and also understand the role of the traditional rights. My role as the Minister for Chieftaincy is to engage my registrars. Indeed, when the matter came, I called my registrar. That's my number one call. They live in the community. And I said, you should have been aware of this and then advise them or even talk to them. So I've been going up and down with my regional registrar. So I would encourage all traditional authorities that when there is something coming up, at least open up to us. We are there for you. We serve you. Then we can guide you. So that, for instance, the MCs who were taken up, we could have said, no, we can get somebody who can do a better job, who are family members. My information is that they were hired MCs. So they can embellish it.
But if it wasn't endorsed, there's no way they
Well, sometimes they do things and then they regret saying it. But the registrars are there for them. There's a job for us to do. Then secondly, we also need to codify our traditional laws. We need to do that. And that's my job with the National House of Chiefs. Indeed, the president of the National House of Chiefs have come to my office and I've put the proposal to him that we should speed up on that matter. Because the tradition differ from one area to another. So sometimes it happens in the Nungwa area, the English Alata may not even understand. Or it comes to mind, the dangers will not understand. But if we codify it and it's available for us to read, why not? We can all agree that, look, everybody has got their own way of life, but they can't cross this boundary. Okay. They can't cross this boundary. But that's the constitution we've all made for ourselves. So we must come under the constitution. Constitution is for our welfare, all of us. It's our vision, our aspirations, that we all sat together. The chiefs were in the Constitutional Assembly, so they also had an input. And that's why the provision on Article 270 has been given as the chieftaincy institution is in there. And there's a law covering it. And there's a minister covering it. So the country recognizes the importance of our tradition. And we shouldn't lose that. We can't just use modernity too much and then dilute our tradition. If you go to Japan, they have their tradition, but they know where they cannot cross. So yes, we're a modern society, but let's not bash our traditional authorities too much. If we don't understand, I would always be available.
But at the point where we need to draw the line is when tradition infringes on the rights of persons that are involved.
That one, there's a right in being infringed or somebody's being dehumanized as the consumer. We'll move in. And that's indeed, when it came initially, we were not sure. We moved in. And that's why we got the police in. I didn't sleep that night. I think on the Sunday night, we stayed up till 2 a.m. until they assured me that the child has been picked up. And then I said, but she wasn't hiding. I said, yeah, I know. I said, but from there, in fact, the police were invited. I've seen the invitation card. When they were invited, they were there. The question is, when they finished the program, where did the child go? And she went to a secure place with an elderly person. So she was available. But I was comfortable that she's been removed, and at least the concerns of Ghanaians have been allayed. The issue of she's pregnant or not had been ascertained is not true. And we understand that she performed a duty from age 6. So she's focused on that. But if you talk to the social welfare department, she's so focused on the job she's doing.
But now that you've taken her,
she's not into marriage.
But now that you've taken her away from her duties, she's just been married to the deity, and then you've taken her out of it. Does it not affect?
It's affecting
the spiritual.
All of us. Spiritually, I'm also thinking: is it right to keep her away for this length of time? But we have to balance the concerns of Ghanaians. And I've got call from BBC and CNN. I have to say, look, I've got journalists in Ghana. I can talk to them. Sometimes you do things we don't come questioning. I'll talk to you guys. But my worry is not to keep her too much away from her responsibilities. Once we are sure that criminality is not part, she's not been betrothed, the betrothal has not happened in the sense that she is committed to somebody, but it's a right to a deity, then she must be going back to perform that right. The question is timing.
Okay.
Maybe tomorrow, when the minister committee meet, we might give a clear idea the timelines.
But what would you say to those who say that it appears you are just being diplomatic in this matter?
I'm so direct in my approach.
It involves your landlords, or because it involves the Bubu Wulomo, amongst others. It appears you're dealing with an untouchable situation.
That's
so
true.
It looks like you're being very diplomatic when it comes to this.
Probably don't know Asabi. When I was going to see him, some of my colleagues thought, Asabi, are you okay? Are you sure should we get police protection? I said, oh, police protection. I'll go in there. I've been to a very dangerous situation. I go there with my heart open. I go there with a very clear idea that I'm going to tell the truth. Okay. When I met him, I said, look, we are picking up a lot of signals. And part of it, you are in trouble if he gets there. I said to him, you will get into serious legal trouble if it is true. So open up. And if it gets out of our hands into the international world, where we don't have control and it gets to human rights organization, the country's image and everything. So let's be clear. And he was very clear with me.
Okay.
He thanked me. He says, look, nobody seemed to have come to me until you came. I said, that's my job. I work with you, open up. And I'm glad he was a very sincere person. I'm not defending him because he's. I've got fetish priests in my home where I talk to them. So I've seen them before.
Okay.
It doesn't scare me. I'm spiritually strong as well.
Okay. Well, but the real issue is the reason why most of us have raised concerns is the issue about child marriages in Ghana. You've seen the figures, staggering figures, that from Straj and then also the ones that we are seeing from the Ghana Statistical Service. The number of children in this situation. They find themselves in this situation most of the time in the name of traditions and customs, amongst others. Josiah is here to help us on that. The SOS has done some extensive work on ending child marriage now. There was a campaign they did also on this matter, Josiah. So this is where we come to you on this, at least. The main factors driving child marriages in Ghana, what exactly are they? Take us through it. Hello, Josiah.
Good evening to all our cherished viewers. And I thank the Honorable Minister for giving us some clarity on the issues. I think that for us in SOS Children's Villages, our focus is the best interest of the child. I'm also appreciative of the inputs of our legal brains here. They've enriched the whole discussion. And even though I'm not a lawyer, I'm beginning to feel like one. Like I told you from the beginning, at the SOS Children's Village, our focus is the best interest of the child. And we see child marriages in the country as a phenomenon that affects the well-being of the child. Because before the age of 18, the child is not matured enough to get into a marital relationship that comes with a lot of burdens. Now, what we could want to talk about the causes and drivers of child marriage in Ghana, one of the factors will be our deeply rooted gender inequalities. If you look at the settings that we find ourselves in, the traditional settings, we find that we have a patriarchy. Patriarchy is a system of male domination.
Yeah.
And as stated, the gender inequality is underlying this practice of patriarchy. This is reflected in the fact that when families face financial insecurity, for example, the girl is more likely than the boy to be pulled out of school and potentially married off to ease the burden on the family. This demonstrates how a girl's rights are not as valued as a boy's in most traditional communities. Not surprisingly, therefore, the prevalence rate for girls is much higher than boys when it comes to the issue of child marriage. The second one is teenage pregnancy, I think. In Ghana, teenage pregnancy is both a cause and consequence of child marriage. You know, if you look at the 2014 Demographic Health Survey, it reported that about 40% of girls aged between 15 years and 19 years had begun having children. Girls living in rural areas and with no education were more likely to get pregnant early. To avoid the shame and stigmatization, the girl is usually given in marriage to the boy or the man, as it were, who impregnated her. Once the girl is married, it is most likely that she will become pregnant again. You know, even when the girl has not become pregnant, the fear of this happening has led some parents to force their girls to marriage, you know, to protect their premarital virginity and avoid unwanted pregnancy, because they think that once the girl has been given a partner who is in marriage, who is in a relationship, then it means the pregnancy is legitimate. The other point is poverty and economic insecurity.
Okay.
You know, poverty at the family level can be very devastating. You know, where families or caregivers have economic challenges and it comes to the care of the children, one would often have a situation where they want to ask the girl to go into marriage so that somebody takes over the burden of taking care of the girl. So it's one of the things that causes child marriages. And then the tradition, customary practices, and social norms also play a role. You know, traditional customs are part of our culture, which is important. I'm somebody who is all out for culture. But when the culture infringes on the rights of children, my organization is against it. The culture must not infringe the rights of children.
Yeah.
And then also we have the problem of teen choices. You know, there is this peer pressure, which leads to rural-urban migration in most cases. Girls who migrate to cities find that they are vulnerable to boys and men who take advantage of their economic situation. You know, this leads to teenage pregnancy and unions between boys and girls. So teen pressure also promotes that. And then poor parenting. People think that once you brought children to the world, the care of the children and then the socialization must be left to chance. No, it is important that parenting is such that it promotes the well-being of the child so that the child is able to reach their highest potential in life. That way they can contribute to the well-being of their families and also the welfare of the society.
Okay.
Finally, I want to touch on ignorance and impunity and even enforcement of the law. Ignorance of the law often contributes to prevalence of child marriage, with many people not recognizing that they are behaving contrary to the law. There are many people in the country who know next to nothing about the laws governing child marriage in the country. And so when they find themselves in that particular situation, there's nothing you can tell them that they will understand. For those who are aware, the problem is a culture of impunity boosted by a high level of corruption. Statistics from the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit, that DOVSU, show an extremely low arrest rate and even lower prosecution rate for perpetrators of crimes. I'm a Ghana too. I love our culture. Sometimes you go around and you hear people talk about what we call Kojiemo. You see a 13-year-old girl who has given birth, and then there is pomp and pageantry at the outdooring ceremony. A man comes there well-dressed who says that he's the father of the child and the girl is the wife. It goes on all over our communities in the country.
Yeah.
But you find that the arrest rate is not something that is appreciable. And for us in SOS Children's Villages, we think that it is important we bring the issue of the best interest of the child to the table in every decision that we make and in law enforcement. Thank you.
I see that the others are itching to chip in terms of the main factors, but this is the point that we depart with our radio audience. Those listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM, we'll have to leave you, and then Walk with Jesus will continue. But for TV, we'll continue the discussion, and then we can get to the bottom of some of the issues that have been raised. And in that submission by Josiah, the issue about traditions and customs comes in. I know that the minister wants to chip in, but Martin, I'm dying to hear you on this matter. The minister mentioned that they are trying to codify some traditional laws. Really, the issue about preservation of culture is key. At least many have mentioned that it's time for us to preserve some of the cultures that we have in this country. But really, when do we get to draw the line between some of these traditional practices and norms, and at what point do we draw the line when it comes to infringement on the rights of the persons involved when it comes to this, especially when it involves children in the case that we are seeing now?
Great. So, MFA, yes, the minister says the chief should document the laws. Yes, the Constitution also makes provision for saying that the chief should do so, okay? But here, right now, I want to focus so much on this current situation. There is no way the chiefs will be able to write any law that will permit them to have betrothal with underage girls. No. The state has already made an incursion. The state, by writing the Children's Act, you can see that our misfortune is that the law is not well written, but you can see clearly that the state is not in favor of betrothal. So no matter what the chiefs do, for betrothal, you can see we want to regulate it to protect children, right?
But in itself, maybe we try to cure this particular issue that has come up. In itself, betrothal is not an offense, is it?
No, it is. Except, it is. It says that no one shall force. No one shall force. A person shall not force a child to be betrothed. So it's an offense, except that they didn't expressly write at what age the offense will be committed.
So then if someone commits that offense, taking into consideration Article 1911, which we've been talking about, where no person shall be convicted of a criminal offense unless the offense is defined and the penalty for it is prescribed in a written law, which we don't have in this particular case.
Yes, so in this particular case, the offense has not been well defined, but the punishment has been written. If you go to the next section, it says that the punishment is a minimum of 10 penalty units and a maximum of what? 250. Yes, look at it in there. Or to a term of imprisonment. You see, so punishment has been provided, but the definition of the offense is a big problem.
So then how do you then punish when the law is not definitive, is not clear on what exactly the offense is, but prescribes a punishment? So then how then do you implement this particular law? It's faulty from start. Is that what we all agree?
Yes. So that's why I'm saying that even as the chiefs go about trying to codify customary law, that tension, it should be clear that as a society, you see the rage, and you heard Honorable Ahiafo refer to it that the law emanates from the people. So it's very clear that as a people, we don't want underage girls being betrothed. So far from what I see, you can't have any law that will put betrothal below 16. You know, some are even saying flat is 18. But if you put betrothal at 18, then it actually defeats the whole purpose of betrothal. Look, it's in the Bible. Okay, all over the place. You will see various cultures. In some of our cultures, you see that even a child as young as 1 month old, at the naming ceremony, then you hear that this family has come to ask for the child, the small girl that has been born 1 month old. And from that time, they begin to bear responsibility, etc., right? Those are the ones we want to prescribe because it goes on. It's very rife in various communities in Ghana. So we want to prescribe that because the law in section 14 is saying that no one shall force a child to be betrothed.
Yeah.
So if the child is too small for you to ask the child, do you agree or not, then it means you cannot go ahead. That's how come I'm saying that for all the small children, it can't happen. But we need an age. Please, just saying that betrothal should also be at 18. No, we are not having a conversation. Yes, if you want to do that, then just cancel betrothal because then you don't need anything to protect a child once the child is at 18. Because that one, then the child reaches the age of majority. But betrothal is meant that you agree today that we'll marry in future. So if you want to prescribe it, then totally right that there shall be no betrothal at all in Ghana. Yes, let's have that conversation. Because I have heard some people say, no. The age for betrothal is also 18. If you go into the Bible, you don't see. You see Jacob. Jacob had to work, 14 years to get Rahel. You see that story, right? Rebecca and then later Rahel, he had to work 14 years. That was a form of betrothal. I worked for these years to get this lady, future marriage. If you put it at 18, then there's no need for betrothal. Just leave people alone.
Yeah.
You say, yes. Then if you put it at 18, just leave people alone. Don't put anything in the children at listen. It means that just leave it that a child shall not be married, okay, and there shall be no betrothal at all.
The lawmaker is, giving us all kinds of gestures on this, meaning that they have a task ahead when it comes to this particular issue. But let me hear from Niadi on this. Then we'll come to you, Ms. Ahiafo, on what exactly will happen going forward, because there's the concern about the kinds of traditions that we have to let go and which ones we need to take on and codify in terms of traditional laws that the minister has talked about. But really, do you agree that there are certain traditions that it looks like it's time for it to go, or because you feel that for spiritual purposes, some of these things should stay? Some have asked, at least I've seen a message here, for instance, saying that if this particular minor was your child, for instance, and the Spirit chose her, are you going to allow that to happen?
Hello, are you with me?
That's for you, Niadi.
Yes, so were you asking the question of betrothal?
And some of the traditions that it's time for us to maybe let go, especially when it infringes on the rights, especially of children.
Oh, of course. If it infringes on the rights of children, why should we pursue it? Okay? Why should we pursue it if it infringes on the rights of the children? So that one, yes, I'm for it. But I mean, given the case at hand, we have been told that even though the girl was possessed since the age 6, when the rights started, she's been going to school and being normal with her friends in class, etc., etc. Okay? So in this specific case, you cannot talk about anything that has prevented her or that is an affront to her rights. Okay?
But if the Spirit chooses you, for instance, if the Spirit chooses you, is it possible for you to say no under this circumstance, knowing that it's a spiritual exercise and the consequences that comes with it? Do you think that, honestly, her parents can say no and that child can say no, knowing the consequences that it comes with?
Christ would have denied God. Christ would have denied God. It wasn't his will. He said, I've come to fulfill the will of the Father. Okay, so if it is of the higher spirit, I mean, what right do you have? People will talk about what? You have to go through...
but how are we likening this to Christ? How are we likening this issue to the case of Christ, for instance? At least we know how Christ was born amongst others. Are we likening this to the Christ situation? Is that what you're doing?
No, you asked that if the Spirit possesses you, do you have the right to...
chooses you? That's what I'm asking. In this case, can you say no? Knowing the consequences that it comes with.
I mean, if you are possessed, I mean, have you seen people possessed? I mean, you cannot say no.
Unfortunately, I'm losing you, Niadi.
So have that right. You don't have that right to yourself.
And that's where the issue about infringement on your rights comes in, because it appears that once you are chosen, some spirit of a sort says, I've chosen you to be my wife, and I can't say no. And that's what you are just saying. Are you not infringing on my rights? If that spirit chooses your child, can you say no to the Bobu Ulomo?
Well.
Unfortunately, I'm losing Niadi.
People suing their parents because they did not give them the right to give birth to them. You might as well go into that. So I think that we shouldn't do that, because, you know, when you come to things of the Spirit, which we cannot give a blind eye to, that our courts even acknowledges it, that they exist. Okay, they exist, because we are in Ghana. We saw the 2013 when Sir John has to appear before our Supreme Court for utterances that he made. It was an Honorable Aikotu who was his counsel, and he pleaded under the spirit of Beshi. He said he was possessed by the spirit called Beshi. That God allowed him. Okay, so when a spirit possesses you, you behave in a way that is not of yourself. So that is what we're saying. I cited an example to the Sakumowulo, who became Paul Mensa because he associated with the Christian faith. And later he came to say that he did not see anything. I mean, go study the Divine Healers Church, Brother Lawson, who intersected Christianity with tradition. Okay, there are a whole lot of literature there. Let us not refuse to read and know that what is happening is not out of nothing. Okay, and even to the Constitution, which I was reading earlier, if you come to 11.5, it says, subject to the provision of this Constitution, the existing law shall not be affected by coming into force of this Constitution. And 3 and 2 tells you that it involves both the oral and the written. So if, yes, as some of our guests have said, and Leonard Pebu have said, that if we want to codify, yes, we can begin to put some of these things that is in gray literature, as we call it in academia, into writing. But yes, when we do so, which we will do, which I myself have started some work on, which is time for us to now boldly polish and finish up the work of the constitution of the Gadangbe state, then all these arguments will be lost.
Okay, well,
because we're going to make it clear. And it's not going to be on betrothal, child marriage, or other things, but it's also going to be an issue of our language and the land as well.
Okay.
So there's a comprehensive work for us to do, which we appreciate, and we will work on that.
Okay, so you insist that her rights have not been infringed upon at all?
Not in any way. Not in any way.
Even though she can't say no.
in any way.
Even though she can't say no after being possessed.
I mean, if she can say no, that is up to her and the gods that have possessed them.
Okay, Mr. Anyafo, we have a tough task ahead when it comes to this issue, the traditions, the law, and modernity, amongst others at least. I don't know if you've been possessed before or you've seen any possession when it comes to spiritual matters, but you're a lawmaker, that's what I know. But really, what will be the way forward? What will we do? Because at least the law itself, we agree that it's problematic when it comes to the betrothal, because that's where we are now. They insist it's not a marriage, it's a traditional rights, a betrothal amongst others, to the deity. What happens?
Let me start with the law. The law says no child shall be forced into betrothal. Why? Simply because Martin Kwebu is saying that there is no age limit set in the law. The law just says no child shall be forced. So can it be interpreted to mean that a child can agree to be betrothed? So that is what creates an ambiguity about the law, which I agreed to.
Yeah.
Now, the Constitution of Ghana is the supreme law of the land above and beyond which no further law exists. And the Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. So therefore, I should have a right to say that I don't want to be married to the deity. I want to be a Christian. I should have a right to say that, oh, I want to be a traditional believer. So since the Constitution guarantee, I beg to differ that when you are asked to marry the deity, you cannot say no.
Can you say no?
Possessed.
Can you say no?
Why not? Why not?
Have you had
If
any
it is
such
not my
spiritual
belief-
encounter and the consequences it comes with?
If it is not my belief that I can marry to a spirit, why would I agree to get married to a spirit? And the law protects me to say no. That is why the Constitution is guaranteeing that particular freedom of religion. So in this case, I beg to differ from him that you should conveniently say no, because the Constitution guarantees freedom of religion. So if there is a customary law which is in conflict with that particular Constitution, to the extent of the conflict, that customary law cannot stand before the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. So clearly, the Constitution guarantees freedom of religion, and you should be able to say no to a marriage to a deity. You should be able to say yes to a marriage to a deity, because it's a matter of religion which you should have a right to say yes, you want to belong or you do not want to belong. So a situation where it appears as if you are forced to marry the spirit and you cannot say no, that particular aspect, I have a problem with it. And the question that I want to ask, which may sound rhetorical, is that is it only a child that can marry a deity, or you can wait for the person to reach the consenting age and can conveniently take decision whether she wants to marry the deity or not to marry the deity?
I'm sure Aniadi and the minister can help us on that, but we are told that they were looking for a virgin in this case, and it appears virgins are in short supply, and she's the one that they found.
If Niade is talking about possession and the spirit has possessed somebody, then the spirit should be able to work effectively for the person to reach the consenting age before getting married to the spirit. Because the spirit is capable of possessing, then equally, the spirit having possessed the person will remain a virgin until 80. Because he is possessed by the spirit. If what he's saying is anything to go by.
Well, that's a tough one. Really.
It's a very tough one for us to understand the spirit to wait.
Yes, but if the spirit can be everywhere with a child, that's what I have for saying that it can wait. 18 years, you can preserve her virginity, wait until she turns 18, and then you can take over.
Well, that's why the beliefs are different. I'm a Christian, others are traditionalists, others are Muslim, but within that difference, we must have some boundaries where some things cannot happen. So in this particular case where the spirits take over, sometimes when I've come close to people who are possessed at a function, maybe a traditional function, and they get some extra strength, you don't know where they come from. And nobody can even hold them together. So sometimes it is not within their powers to reject a spiritual possession. So they cannot even say no because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But we need to also situate it in this particular case that especially the mother is part of the clan. She's a priestess.
Okay, so that's where I want to find out.
So,
it's an issue that came up that I was trying to find out that if the mother is a priestess, for instance, we have priestesses, that's established at least in the Ga tradition and elsewhere. Do they also get married to young boys? Do they also choose, maybe Niadi can also help?
I don't think so, but I haven't checked that. But what I know from what this situation brought up is that they sort of were there and protective. The mother is there. So she wasn't like a child on her own and she has to answer yes or no. So the mother was available. But I also know from what I picked up is that she was being initiated to become a queen mother of all the queens.
Okay.
So she was being it's an elevation ceremony that they performed. And so, yes, she's a child, but in the spiritual realm, she's above all of them. They have to basically worship her.
She's old in the spirit.
She's older in the spirit.
Oh, okay.
And indeed, there was a little history that I picked up from the traditional people that the girl seemed to have been an older person who died and has come back. There's all, you see, traditionally, we have all the, I can tell you, when I was born, I'm told that I'm an old man who has come back. Because I was way above my
But
age.
how do you justify that in law?
That's the
that
point.
child is old,
this
so
is
yeah,
the point
it's fine.
of our discussion
Exactly.
now. So, and I'm glad the legal brains are also here. And also, I'm here to look at the traditional sense and the House of Chiefs. They are also very versed in their custom. So the point from here we take is that let's all work together. Let's find out where the core traditional things rest, and beyond that, you can't go there. You cannot go, because then you're leaving the spirituality to human life, which we cannot see, and you cannot dictate to us, because we don't see the spirit.
Exactly.
So it's going to be a fascinating period for all of us. It's giving us a very good case for especially myself to work with the House of Chiefs.
Yeah.
Then look, go down. Some of them are so archaic that we have to get rid of it. Some too, there must be some fine line, because I'm talking to some of the chiefs and they say, well, look, sometimes betrothal, sometimes preserve the girl from being abused. So they preserve her. And if everybody knows that she's betrothed, don't go there. And for them, it's like disciplined. And some families pride themselves that from our clan, we are able to protect our young girls because nobody can just play with them. They go here, they're properly given to a priest. So there is some positives and negatives. This incident, although it's become a Nungwa matter, I want to extend it beyond Nungwa. I want to look at all the traditional customs.
Are you looking at religion as well?
Religion as well.
Because
and that comes under me too.
It's also a spiritual.
It's mixed up with religion and chieftaincy and tradition. So from here, I want to talk more. I want to listen to people.
Because there are cases where in religion, for instance, people are taken to prayer camps against their will because they don't have to go to the hospital, amongst others. That's also their belief. It's also a spiritual matter for them. Are we going to then open up that space such that everybody comes up with it's a spiritual thing, it's a spiritual thing?
Religious policy area I'm also going in. Because part of my ministry's job is to develop a policy. It has never happened. And that area you brought is important. I've come across people who are going to camps and their situation should have been in the hospital. They should have been in the hospital.
But they don't believe that.
But they believe it. That's why they're there. And they passed away. And they believe that that's how they were supposed to die. But if they had been attended to by a medical officer, they would have survived. So it's a gray area. And it's good discussion we're all undertaking. And for me, I would encourage it. There's nothing wrong in talking, in joy-joying, so we can have a clear path. Me as a Christian, I have my belief and I'm protected by the blood of Jesus Christ and I can enter anywhere. So there's a spirit somewhere, I can be there and we can engage. And I think I will win. I will win because of the Christ in me. But the point is that I cannot dispute somebody's. They believe it. Because I also come from, I'm also an indigenous and from I also know. And I believe, but I don't want to go there.
Okay.
So when they do something that it crosses my path, I said, no, you can't come here. Leave me alone. I'm going to church today. I'm not coming to this place.
Okay.
But sometimes I have to attend to some of the traditional thing they do. But I'll stay back and let them perform it. But I can watch it. And I understand what they're doing.
Okay.
So it's a unique thing in Ghana. It's a unique thing in Africa. It's a unique thing that we cannot throw away overnight. But we need to check that it doesn't infringe and dehumanize people, especially when children are involved.
Okay.
When children are involved, we do everything to protect a child. That one, I'll even fight to protect a child.
Okay. Well, Josiah, briefly, I would want to hear you on this, on what exactly you expect to happen going forward, especially in this particular case, before I take the final word from the legal brains on the show.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. I think that what I want to add is that at the SOS Children's Villages, we respect traditions, we respect cultures, respect the opinions of other people. But we also believe in the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child principle that children have a right to participation. So when you want to take a decision that is going to affect the life of the child, it is important that you give that child the right to be part of the decision. Otherwise, at the end of the day, if things go amiss, the child will blame you.
Okay.
So it is important that the development of the child to reach their highest potential is key, but at the same time, it is important for them to be participants in the decisions that affect them. Now, in talking about what efforts we have to put in place to ensure that we promote the well-being of children, we can look at it from the perspective of the government.
Okay.
I know that the government has national strategic frameworks. The Ministry of Gender and Social Protection has a national strategic framework on ending child marriage now. I think it was promulgated in 2017 to 2026. It's a 10-year program.
Okay.
This program was supported by UNICEF. And I believe that if we are to follow the principles underlying this particular project, we should be able to make a headway in the area of ending child marriages.
Okay. Okay.
When it comes to the NGO level, there are numerous NGOs and CBOs in the country who are in the area of child welfare and are looking at the situation of children in marriage. At the SOS Children's Villages, for instance, our family strengthening intervention in communities identified during one of our program duties that one of the problems confronting children in Ghana is the problem of child marriage.
Okay.
And so at a place like Choko, we started what we call End Child Marriage Now program in 2016.
Wow.
And then we moved this to certain parts of northern Ghana to make sure that children who were suffering from the incidents of child marriage were supported.
Okay, Mr. Josiah Nate, really, I'm surprised you are saying choco. For a Gamman, I was hoping you would say choco instead of choco. But really, that's just on a lighter note. In wrapping up with my other guests on this, we can't overrun with the little time that I have. So maybe I'll share the 1.5 minutes I have with you, 30 seconds each, on what exactly will happen going forward and what your expectations are. Niadi, maybe I'll start with you on this, then we can wrap up.
Okay, so this is what Reverend Ato Ahuma has to say, since this discussion has got to do with religiosity, spirituality, and all that. He said an Accra man, and this was in 1895.
You love your history, don't you? Mm-hmm.
Yes, Reverend Ato Ahuma.
Okay.
Reverend Ato Ahuma in 1895. This is what he's got to say. He said an Accra man was then respected, not by reason of his national prestige only, but by his personal ability and superior qualities.
Okay.
Also, in war, travel, voyage, in times of epidemic, and in critical moments of life, he was the special object of divine protection.
Okay, your 30 seconds up on that, Niadi. Unfortunately, 30 seconds up. I need to really go. Mr. Hiafo, let me give you the 30 seconds or so also on this quickly.
Let me start by saying that in matters involving children, it is the interest of the child that is paramount. Now, when we talk about offenses of this nature, like teenage pregnancy, we need to classify it. Is the person pregnant below the age of 16? If it is below the age of 16, then there is an element of the parliament there that the law is already in existence to deal with.
Okay.
Now, law is dynamic. So also is the customs and traditions.
Okay.
They are all subject to changes.
Okay.
So in the light of this modern development, we have to look at the law and as well as the custom and traditions of various tribes in Ghana.
Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen. Mr. Pebu, I was hoping I could give you the final word on this, but really out of time on this matter. Maybe I'm told I can give you 30 seconds. Briefly, Mr. Pebu.
Okay, so I will implore the National House of Chiefs to rise up to their role under Article 272 of the Constitution. It says 272C says that they should undertake an evaluation of traditional customs and usages with a view to eliminating those customs and usages that are outmoded and socially harmful.
Okay.
So you see that our society is very angry. We are not happy with this. So they should look at their role under Article 272 and then let's do something about it.
Okay.
We also need the Children's Law Act amended.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Minister. I know that we'll get to interact again. You have 30 seconds. You can wrap up on that.
Thank you. I've also
10 seconds.
I've also been working with the UNFPO, the United Nations Population Fund, on eradicating child marriage together with the Minister for Gender. But for me, it's good this comes to fore. The National House of Chiefs is working. As a minister, I have a responsibility to go back to Parliament with an ally, if necessary.
For an amendment. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time, especially to you also, Stephen Asamoah, Minister for Chieftaincy. I've also had Bernard here for Martin Pebu, Nia Madi, and then Josiah Bernard Nate. That's been The Probe. I am MF Apau. Have a good evening.